2025, and I want to cover what's covered. Yeah, I want to cover what's covering. No, I want to cover what's buzzing. Dan Bongino hasn't been to work since July 9th, reportedly over the Epstein client list fallout. Again, earlier this year, Pam Bondi said the client list was on her desk. Now she says there is no client list. Once upon a time, Dan Bongino alluded to the fact, actually several times, he did it over several years, alluded to the fact that Epstein must have been murdered, not a self-deletion. And of course, by the numbers, and he came out and said, "Oh, I saw the grainy video. It was a lot like the Zapruder film, and he did off himself." We're going to see how all of these rituals come together perfectly, and this is going to be another example of political theater 101. And we're going to talk about why this is happening on 11th day of 7th month, like 117, like Bitcoin eclipsing 117K for the first time ever today, a very symbolic number that has a lot to do with the CIA, when a lot of people have speculated for many years that the way Epstein became so wealthy was through the CIA. There's all kinds of speculation about what the CIA might have used him for. Was it used to get blackmail on people so they can get government officials to do their bidding, corporate types to do their bidding? So much speculation, but all I can show you for sure is that everything about Epstein that you've ever heard up to the present is news by the numbers and political theater 101. We'll also talk about Trump arriving in Texas today for his photo op. You know, he was smiling for the cameras. You know, what a great event to be there in front of the cameras, posing, doing a whole lot of nothing but smiling. Yeah, it's just, I hate politics and I hate photo ops. But we're going to talk about Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump, because I'm seeing what's going on now. Of course, the last time this happened on the Guadalupe River, the other mega guy who was a Hollywood actor who became president was Ronald Reagan. And it's all starting to make more sense. Also, we talked about, could Arizona be up next? Because we had a disaster in Texas. Then we went west to New Mexico. And then the next state over was Arizona. And sure enough, the Grand Canyon's on fire. And if you missed the stream I did this morning on Bitcoin, yesterday we talked about why it should surge up to 117K on 11/7. If you missed that, we'll quickly recap. The last two live streams I've done, I thought this Rainmaker CEO one, I thought it was going to, I guess it's the United States of amnesia. Nobody cares about the Texas flood now that a few days have passed. But I thought this video would get a lot more views. If you didn't watch this video, this is an important video to watch. I mean, you talk about pounding the point home. And man, I got up early and did the Bitcoin video. I thought usually when I cover Bitcoin, it gets quite a few views, but not this time. Man, right when you feel like the channel's picking up, the views are way back down. What are you going to do? We'll keep on pushing forward anyway. So this Dan Bongino thing. This is the news today that he might not be coming back, that he might be resigning over the Epstein client list fallout. And if you read the story, he hasn't been to work since Wednesday, 2 days ago, July 9th, 7-9, while the chump is 79 years old. And I'm sure if you were here when Epstein supposedly offed himself for the weekend at Tisha B'Av, I'm sure you saw how I covered how perfectly synced it was with the orange goon back then, the guy who flirts with 10-year-olds and wants to have sex with his own daughter. Somehow the dummies, you know, the QAnon types, you know, they think this guy's out to stop the child traffickers when it's highly likely he's one of them. I'm talking about the chump. But anyway, look at what day Dan Bongino might have last showed up to work, 7-9, while the chump's 79. It's also July 9th, the day that leaves 175 days left in the year. And what's Dan Bongino equal? It equals 175. And again, he's one of the multiple Fox News personalities now making up this administration, when, of course, Fox News began as it began and it still is. It's a Republican news network where Republicans think it's the only real news because they like to listen to echo chambers of nonsense. Again, the truth is all the cable news networks are trash, Fox and all of them. They're all lying to you, and none of them are giving you the information you need. You know, Fox News brings on that Nick Shirley kid. That kid is like literally a special ed intelligence level. And notice he's grown to like over 500,000 subs. It's because this whole populace is pretty much special ed level. But it's like, how do they bring on this little 20-year-old kid who's literally, retarded? How are we not getting brought on? At least bring us on to at least tell the rituals of the Democratic Party. But again, it's both sides of the aisle. They all move by the numbers. It's all political theater. That's all you get from this choreographed, whatever you want to call it, federal government that we do have. So anyway, Bongino's last day in the administration might very well have been the day leaving 175 days left in the year. And we do write that date 7/9 in the U.S. And this is Dan Bongino, who alluded to the fact for many years that there's a cover-up and Epstein clearly was murdered because he had too many things on too many people and they couldn't let it get out. But now he's the deputy in the FBI. He said, oh, I saw the grainy film. I mean, you could hardly make anything out, but I know he offed himself. Remember the way murder and Epstein overlaps, and it was 34 days after he was found guilty that he offed himself in the cell. And keep in mind, 34 is the 9th Fibonacci number, since Bongino's last day was the 9th. Again, if you're new here, these are the 4 base ciphers of the English language: alphabetic order, reverse alphabetic order, both orders with numerology. Remember the 83, because we're going to come back to it. And perhaps I'll talk about this again for the nth time in a moment too. Bongino took his post as the deputy director on March 17th. The story is that on June 25th, he had to flee the meeting. This meeting over Epstein, he was greatly frustrated, so he was seen storming out of the meeting on June 25th. Keep in mind, that's George Orwell's birthday, the same George Orwell who wrote 1984 and Animal Farm, and should have clued in everybody who ever read those books to what government's really about, authority's really about, news media's really about. They say they're works of fiction, but they're truer than probably anything you got in your 13 years of slave school. So anyway, from him taking his post March 17th to June 25th, the day he storms out of the Epstein meeting, leading up to him not showing up to work after July 9th, notice that was his 101st day in office. And Jeffrey Edward Epstein, his full name is 101. And if you noticed up here, Epstein's also 101. He has a double 101 connection. 101's like that elementary class you go to in school, the introductory class. Again, you learn introductory gematria like I teach every day. It's all you need to see through the show by the numbers literally every single day. And that day did have 76 date numerology. We'll come back to that in light of it being July 6th, where they came out and said there is no client list. We'll cover why that was in light of the chump. But from Bongino taking office on March 17th to July 9th, the day, his last day at work, he hasn't been there since the 9th, that was 114 days, which is the 83rd composite number. And it does connect to murder, which is what he alluded to forever. And it also connects to the Brotherhood of Death, as we'll get to, which is Skull and Bones, which is that powerful secret society that is large and in charge in Washington, D.C., and has put several people in the Oval Office and in the House and in the Senate and in corporate seats all across this nation and the world. And that's the greater point we're leading up to. Pam Bondi, she's still coming to work, and she's really towing the company line right now. She's acting like she never tweeted that the client list was on her desk. Like, what tweet? I know this is the United States of amnesia. Nobody remembers anything past Monday. But her full name, Pamela Jo Bondi, 117. Here we are on 11th day, 7th month. Central Intelligence Agency, 117. Bitcoin, 117. Ripple Coin, 117. They're both having great days. So just coming down here a little bit further. Remember, Bongino, it was May 29th, right? It was JFK's birthday anniversary. That's the 149th day of the year, the 35th prime, like JFK was number 35, killed on I-35. But, yeah, Bongino came out, or he had his, it was May 29th where Bongino said Jeffrey Epstein deleted himself. He saw the video. He said that on May 29th, right? And we talked about how Skull and Bones equals 149 and 76, like Bongino equals 76. And remember, the client list no longer existed as a 7-6. But here, coming back, and we'll get to how Trump has the 76 connection as well. But look at this. So from the day that he came out and said no client list, right, to the day that he no longer came to work, that was 41 days later. And notice how Skull and Bones is also 41. Should remind you of Papa Bush. Somebody thought I was missaying that the other day because they're like, no, his nickname is Poppy Bush. I know that too because the whole opioid thing. But I like to call him Papa Bush because he was, daddy to W, who was the first Republican since Daddy. And then we were right back in war in the same place in the world as when Daddy was in office. And somehow all the American dum-dums didn't catch on to any of the rigged system, not even when he became number 43 in the state where his brother was the 43rd governor and their daddy was the 43rd vice president. The dum-dums just didn't catch on to the number games. But anyway, Skull and Bones, 149. Bongino, 149th day of the year, goes against what he'd been saying for years. Now that he's a part of the federal government, never mind. And I understand he was part of the Secret Service in the past, but he's climbing the ladder. He's got to toe the line. But he can only toe the line so far is the way this story's going. Again, the 41 days later, run it in reverse, Skull and Bones 202. It's like Papa Bush, Poppy Bush, whatever you want to call him. He's born on June 12th, the day leaving 202 days left in the year. DC's the 202 area code. That movie about Skull and Bones came out on the 202nd day of Paul Walker's age, who died 5 years to the day of George Herbert Walker Bush. And of course, he got a red Porsche in the Skulls, the movie about Skull and Bones that came out right before the son was elected president. And he dies in a weird way in a red Porsche on 11/30, when 11 plus 30 is 41. Again, the day number 41 would eventually die in 2018. And don't forget who told you that he wasn't going to live past that day. I told everybody he was not living past November 30th, 2018. Papa Bush, that was the expiration date, and it sure was. It was all synced up with McCain, who had a very similar story to old Poppy/Papa. And then you run it in reverse with numerology. It's 76, like Donald John Trump, like Bongino, like how W's birthday is July 6th, and like how the Georgia Guidestones came down on his 76th birthday, and they were put up on March 22nd, 322, when Skull and Bones is order 322, and Jeffrey Edward Epstein is 322. Again, whenever we get these criticisms of you're using multiple ciphers, I just feel like people leave that comments like, did you even finish like one video that I ever did? Because I usually show how all the ciphers work together in these rituals over and over again. And don't forget, number 41 was in attendance when JFK died, the guy born on the 149th day of the year. Don't forget it. As for the Brotherhood of Death, notice it has 187 in the most simple cipher. It was July 6th where all of a sudden there was no more client list on the 187th day of the year. Keep in mind, George Washington equals 187, so does Washington, D.C., so does Society of Jesus, so does Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, so does Holy Roman Empire. But I bring up the point about George Washington because that date can be written 6-7. George Washington died unexpectedly at age 67. Mr. 187 himself, and he died on December 14th, pretty fateful day in history, day that they like to use to take away the Second Amendment. If you spell out 1214 as words, it equals 187. If you write out December 14th, it equals 187. Remember, the Skull and Bones order is modeled after the Illuminati, where the Illuminati's founder died on the 322nd day of the year, and he was a member of the Society of Jesus, a.k.a. the Jesuits, and the Jesuits are the modern-day Templars, and Skull and Bones also gets their symbolism from how the Templars buried their dead in an ossuary, how all these things fit together. But yeah, Brotherhood of Death, also 97. A lot of the world writes the 9th of July, 9/7, Bongino's last day. And then in reverse with numerology, it's 83. And again, we talked about how his last day was 114 days after he took office. Seemingly his last day right now. They're making it seem like he's probably out. 114, 83rd composite number. Remember the flood that just happened in Texas was a major 83 ritual. Flood equals 83 like murder, using the weather as a weapon. But the emergency alert went out to Kerrville at 1:14 a.m., which of course is the 74th minute of the day, like it was 7-4, and that's another killing number. like 3 of the first 5 U.S. presidents dead on 7/4, and all outspoken against the Jesuits in the Catholic Church. Go figure. As for Kash Patel, the boss, he's born on the 56th day of the year, and today's the 137th day of his age. And I put the wrong screenshot in there, but of course, Washington, D.C. equals 137 and 56. Born on the 56th day of the year, 137th day of his age. Big news for his FBI department. His deputy director might very well be out. And keep in mind, 137 is the 33rd prime, and the alumni of Skull and Bones are bonesmen. It's like George W. Bush. He graduated from Skull and Bones in 68, became president 33 years later. It's like how World Trade Center construction began in 68. 911 was made the national emergency dialing code. His father was the head of the CIA back then. So, yeah. Again, as they say, they couldn't have scripted it any better. Dan Bongino. It's probably the script he signed up for. He's got to get back to Rumble. And stumping for the Reds. Rumble's calling. All right. Just to remind you about when Epstein died during Tisha B'Av. Just to remind you. Again, it was 34 days after he was found guilty. Epstein in self-deletion word is 34. And Epstein and murder, double overlap. July 8th, 19, the guilty date was a date with 34 numerology. Jeffrey Epstein, without the middle names, 163, the 38th prime. He died 163 days from his birthday. Never mind that his birthday is the 201st day of the nation's age, 20/1, going with the CIA and its big 201 history. And DC and its big 201 history. But yeah, his name connecting to sacrifice, Epstein, ritual, sacrifice, they're all 73. And don't forget that Bongino, where is it? Right here. From him taking office to him coming out and saying that Epstein got rid of himself was 73 days. Same thing we talked about when the news broke. And then Tisha B'Av is to remember the destruction of the temple. Jeffrey Epstein, sex trafficking temple, they all relate. Epstein and Trump, perfect overlap. Ooish. Trump had won the 58th election after announcing from the 58-story Trump Tower. He was also 73 years old at the time. From his birthday to the Epstein death was 58 days. And again, Hillary wrote the book, What Happened? She should have included the Epstein story in there, if only she could have seen the future. But yeah, 58's also big with the temples that are remembered on Tisha B'Av. And of course, Trump's on the coin to bring about the third temple. But yeah, oh, you know what? He was arrested on July 6th. I'd forgotten this. So now all these years later, 6 years later, now there's no client list on the anniversary of his arrest. And what arrested him on the day leaving 178 days left in the year was the FBI NYPD Crimes Against Children Task Force. Your local city federal connection in the Empire State. If anybody knows who Derek Bros is, again, Derek Bros is one of these half-truthers. He was so butthurt when I showed this. He was so butthurt. He thought it was so dumb because back then his whole channel was about Epstein and how Epstein's the worst person on earth. And if we could just stop Epstein, the whole world will be all better. If we can just stop Epstein, this little character on the world stage, it'll all be better. Has anything gotten better since Epstein's arrest? No, it's gotten 10 times worse. And this is why, dum-dums like Derek Bros don't know their place. Anyway, let's see. Trump's little photo shoot in Texas. Notice, it comes on the day leaving 173 days left in the year, which is the 40th prime. Of course, Ronald Reagan was number 40. Re-elected for his second term 40 years ago. Well, 40 years ago, he would have been living out the start of his second term like Trump is right now. Washington Post and other articles were reporting that 173 people were missing. In this same article, it talks about how Trump will be in town the next day. Probably not an accident. And there's all kinds of different numbers out there, I'm aware. But here's what gets interesting. Notice the overlap with River and Friday. And by the way, if you've been watching CNN, they've been reporting all day that there's 99 significant fires burning in the US right now. 99 on a Friday when the United States of America equals 99, and it was named that on 99. But again, look at River and Friday. 36 forwards and backwards, also the 63. Today does have 63 date numerology. From Reagan's death anniversary, remember Ronald Reagan equals 56, and he died on the date that can be written 5-6, like Washington, D.C.'s 56. But from his death anniversary to Trump showing up is 36 days later. And again, when Reagan was in office, was the last time there was this Guadalupe River flooding that killed a bunch of campers that they keep talking about. Again, 38 years ago, like death, murder, killing, and RIP equal 38, like the federal cities on the 38th parallel, et cetera, et cetera. Like Pentagon equals 38, the nation's killing department, which more than likely had something to do with what happened on Texas on the 4th of July when holiday also equals 38. But yeah, isn't that neat how it lines up with the history of Reagan, the other mega guy, the other guy who ran on the highest degree of the Church of Satan, which is mega, which I can't emphasize enough. And for everyone who thinks that's a coincidence, you should go back to the 45th birthday of the Church of Satan when Trump was at the White House with Obama, and Obama told the joke that Trump would be number 45. And of course, Barack means lightning, and Satan comes to earth in a bolt of lightning. Both parties in on the big script. Endless jokes mocking the people that go over almost everyone's head. Trump shows up 27 days after his birthday, the ritual number, while they say 27 campers from Camp Mystic are dead. Campers and counselors, and I believe some are still missing. And a lot of headlines have talked about 161 missing. That's the line I've seen the most since July 4th, 161 missing. And I realize they're using all kinds of numbers, but that's the one I keep seeing just looking at different news sources. Going back in time from Reagan's birthday to when the flood hit Camp Pot of Gold in 87, it was 161 days. And I'm starting to think that's not an accident in light of this little ritual with Trump showing up in Texas as the new Ronald Reagan. Remember, even phrases like indoors equal 40, and Trump had the first indoor inauguration in 40 years. The last to do it was Reagan, number 40. 40 is also not an arbitrary number. It's a biblical number. You think of floods, right? 40 days and 40 nights. Old Testament equals 40 in Gematria. So does United States. United States has a triple connection to 40. United States is 40. US is 40. USA is 40. And you see how Old Testament's 40? If you write out United States of America in the Jewish cipher, which Derek renamed Latin on his calculator, it's 929. Like there's 929 chapters in the Old Testament for Protestant Bibles. Bibles that are 66 books. Protestant Bibles have 929 chapters in the Old Testament. That's why everything in this nation's by this Kabbalistic code straight out of the Torah. Again, the huge flood ritual with the 83 in this most recent event, in the 803 area code when Guadalupe River's 83, and it was 83 days from James Kerr's birthday anniversary. And again, Genesis 8:3, where the biblical flood ends. Yeah, what a day for a photo op. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly what they did there with the chump. And again, we just talked about how, in Texas, the scapegoat became the young kid given all his money by Peter Thiel so he could start his cloud seeding business earlier this year. He's saying, listen, I did the cloud seeding on July 2nd, 7/2. It didn't have a damn thing to do with what happened 2 days later on 7/4. And now we have the White Sage fire in Arizona, which equals 72 forwards and backwards. Remember, Jesuit order 72. And I had just talked about, is Arizona next? Because it went from Texas to New Mexico. You keep moving west. Next is Arizona, right? And remember what they just did in this Ruidoso, New Mexico. If you missed my video on that, there's a short video on it. But this town was on fire last summer. And from the day the fire was put out, July 15th, until the day it got flooded was 359 days, the 72nd prime. And the fire last year was the South Fork fire. That was its name, 72 forwards and backwards. So 7/2 cloud seeding is a topic in Texas. 72 ritual in New Mexico, now 72 ritual in Arizona. And again, that little quote from Ignatius Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, go forth and set the world on fire. It has that 144. Remember, Jesuit order has the 144 and the 72. And United States of America. Oh, whoops, hold on. You got to throw a "the" on it. It's the United States of America, which is 144. Forwards is 99, like it was named that on September 9th. They said from the fire, they believe that a 67-year-old hiker. Well, actually, it actually doesn't make a whole lot of sense, really. They in this article about the fire, they point out that this 67-year-old died the day before the fire began, because the fire began on July 9th. July 9th, we mentioned July 9th was the day upcoming with 25 date numerology, because flood equals 25, and so does fire. They're both 25. So I said at the beginning of the year, it could be a really bad year for flood and fire. I noticed something interesting on CNN today when they were showing that there's 99 fires burning right now in the country on a Friday, again in the United States of America. If you catch, the CNN will often show the same things over and over throughout the day, just like all cable news does, because they only have so much to talk about. If you end up seeing that later today, watch, because they're going to put up this data about how many fires there are this year compared to an average year. I forget what the exact number is, but there's way more fires this year than an average year, right? But what's interesting is when they put up that piece of information, they have another piece of information on the screen, and they show this year there's been significantly less acreage burned in fires than average by this time. So there's been way more fires, but significantly less fire damage. So it's like, and that they're emphasizing, when I was watching the CNN, they had all the data up on the screen, but they weren't really talking about the less damage burned. They were just talking about how many more fires there are this year. And it's like, how many of these have been just like purposely set to emphasize it that were quickly put out? When they were doing that, they had on the like scrolling thing showing some of the fires that were burning. I know some of them were like 2 acres, 3 acres, which, I mean, if you're there in person seeing 2 acres, 3 acres burn, it does look pretty decent, but that's also not that big. It's not like these crazy fires when, tens of thousands of acres and major significant portion of the forest and natural environment. But yeah, anyway, July 9th, 2025, it was the date with 25 date numerology, right, for fire. On that day, we saw a lot of coverage about the flooding in New Mexico and in Chicago, which happened the evening prior. And yeah, just this mention of the 67-year-old in the story, which he died the day before the fire. But I see this number a lot with fire stories too. Arson is 67. I think that's why they threw that in there. And we all know how deadly the 67 number is too, for them to just throw in this story about the 67-year-old hiker. Blood sacrifice 67, human sacrifice 67. So yeah, it don't. I don't know. I guess it's a tragedy like the fire, but it doesn't really have anything to do with the fire, which the article's about. And that's what I mean also about Once Upon a Time when I didn't know Gematria, and they're just recurring numbers that show up in stories a lot. And sometimes, like, does that detail even need to be in the story? That number is awfully specific. I mean, how many times have we gone over the years where we're laughing at, like, what the sentence says? It'll say, approximately 67 people died. It's like, that doesn't sound like an approximate number. Approximate would be like more than 50, less than 100, approximately 70. Approximately 38 people died. Just over the years, we read so many things like that. And we're like, It doesn't seem too approximate. It seems very specific to the redundant Kabbalistic encoding. But okay, I'll also just quick recap on the Bitcoin thing. We talked about this in yesterday's stream, why Bitcoin would likely surge up and hit the milestone of 117K on the 11/7 date. One of you guys left a comment after the video. Some of you guys really need to work on your hearing. One of your comments this morning after my video, or not today's video, but yesterday's video was, maybe it'll hit 117K tomorrow instead of November 7th. It's like nowhere in the video did I say November 7th, buddy. I said tomorrow, 11/7. For a lot of you guys who don't know, the majority of the world writes the day before the month. The day can be written either way. And again, case in point, you got to look at it both ways, because look at the ritual with Bitcoin today. Surpasses 117K for the first time on the 11th of July. And again, if you missed my video earlier, watch the video earlier that didn't get any traction, because there's a lot of information here. But the other big piece of this was that from the day that Bitcoin launched, January 9th, 2009, to it hitting this milestone's 861 weeks. Well, why does that matter? 861 is the 711th composite number. And it hits this milestone on 7/11 or 11/7. And as I've always said, Bitcoin's completely Jesuit. It's just so obvious. It's also the 41st triangular number, and today's 41 weeks after the big Jesuit anniversary being recognized by the Roman Catholic Church, and that's a big number here in the USA. And this man who used to run Crypto AG that was bought out by the CIA, it's 41 years and change since he died right now. Again, I don't want to go over all this again, because I did a nice long video on it this morning. It's on the live tab. It's the one with the big old Bitcoin symbol. By the way, somebody had a great observation, though. Shout out to Joan. Joan said, what about that B? Don't you think that's like a 13? Because, again, 41's the 13th prime. 13's all over the money, as we talked about this guy right here, Mr. Crypto AG, who died on September 7th, 9/7, like crypto's 97, and today's 97 days after Satoshi Nakamoto's birthday, which is the 25th prime, and here we are in 2025. And again, he was also born on 7/2, like Bitcoin and money and Jesuit order is 72. This guy, he died 13 years after selling his business to the CIA. He died in 83, the 23rd prime, and he died at 91, the 13th triangular, and he died on his 68th day of his age. Look how everything overlaps with CIA. This guy who sold his business to the CIA in 70, 13 years before he died. And his death was also 11 days before the CIA's birthday. Yeah, not an accident. So, yeah, there's more to it. Covered it this morning. Oh, another comment that was left that was great. I didn't realize that a new Superman movie came out today. Of course, Superman, he's from Krypton, a lot like Crypto. Out in the front of the CIA headquarters, they have the statue Kryptos. CIA's into cryptography. Cryptography is behind every Bitcoin ritual. Gematria is a form of cryptography. The Crypto statue pays tribute to Gematria right at the CIA's headquarters. I wonder how many half-truthers on social media that get all the attention, like the Mark Dices of the world, are CIA assets. Mark Dice is allowed to race bait, just be a horrible human being for over however god long he's been on the platform. Never had his channel deleted. Meanwhile, yours truly been deleted 20-some times. 4 times I've been on the cusp of 100K subs. 3 channels got deleted, and the other one was Gematria Effect Sports. Just overnight, it lost 6,000 subs and has been parked at 89,000 subs for now over 3 years. Just hasn't moved off 89K subs for 3 years. Have you ever seen that happen to a channel? Please. They just don't want to send me my YouTube plaque. Anyway. Yeah, I think we'll keep this one short and sweet. Maybe real quick, I'll see if anything else is buzzing. Usually Friday's pretty slow. Oh, we got an update in the Air India crash. Since I did the Air India crash, I've had a lot of people ask me if I covered it. And a good way to search if I covered it is to go through the videos and lives I do, because we certainly did right when the news broke. It's happened on Papa Bush's birthday, a 43 date numerology I've educated for years about plane crashes in 43, the nonstop rituals with 11, the lone survivor in 11A. Let me show you what they did with this real quick. It was destined for London Gatwick. This happened on the first of the last 203 days of the year. You could also say 202 days remaining. Papa Bush's birthday, Mr. Skull and Bones, as we talked about earlier. But and by the way, Pan Am Airlines. Remember Pan Am 103 before we were the thing that introduced us to Islamic terrorism in the air. Osama's birthday, the 10th day of the third month. Anyway, Pan Am was also an airline founded by a Skull and Bones member. But anyway, here it is right here. From the founding date of this airline to the crash was 241 days. And initially they said 242 people died, but then after the one survivor, it went to 241. So 241 people die 241 days after the airline's founding date. I mean, we're coming up on the 79th birthday, or 79th anniversary of them commencing operations, which is later this month on International Tiger Day, July 29th. We'll see what that could end up meaning, but since we have this update today, engine fuel supply was cut just before Air India jet crash, preliminary report says. Well, if it happened on the 12th and today is the 11th, that means it's 29 days later. Engine fuel supply. Engine fuel supply. Well, I see a familiar number we've just talked about over and over all day today. 207's the old Art of War number. 70 and Art of War was published in 1772 by the Jesuits. I don't know. We'll see where this goes because you got this thing going on between India and Pakistan, as we covered a couple months back. There's no way anybody remembers that in the United States of amnesia. I'll have to think more about the engine fuel supply. Sometimes I think about something for an hour and then all of a sudden I'm like, eureka. But yeah, here's a familiar number, old 72. Okay. That's what CNN's got up there. We'll run through all the propaganda networks real quick. Dan Bongino, they're like, come back to Fox, Dan. The ratings will be through the roof now that you're a government insider. Martin Luther King's daughter gets involved as Angel Reese controversy escalates. I mean, yeah, the whole thing of Caitlin Clark and race and it's just what I mean, again, little girls are who follow Caitlin Clark, and they absorb all this stuff. It's just, if only we could just all turn off the internet and our TVs together so they could never come on again. I'd be happy to never do this again if we could all do that. It really is. Technology, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, but it's definitely done way more damage to humanity than anything else. I mean, you just look at the obesity, the anxiety, the fact that hardly any kids are outside playing anywhere. It might be a blessing to be born in a poor neighborhood. The only places I really see kids outside is when I drive through poorer parts of town. I think, man, might be a real blessing. The meek shall inherit the earth. Fuel switch. Fuel switch is cut off before Air India. So they worded a little bit different here. Remember, people got killed on the ground, which is why the number got bigger. And I guess they're saying 19 were killed on the ground. Oh, there's a number we've seen before. Fuel switch is cut off. You know what? I'll take a moment to read about this here in a second. Let me see what Al Jazeera's got. Al Jazeera, I should have went there the other day at the end of the live stream. They had 74 killed in Gaza. I thought, wow, 74, huh? Like killing is 74, like a cult, like Gematria, like the song Gematria, the killing name, like Jewish, like Masonic. By the way, when the war started, Gaza was 74 years old. U.S. court nixes guilty plea for alleged 9/11 attacks mastermind. That one's not. Huh. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. An appeals court in the United States has validated the decision of former Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin to withdraw a plea deal for Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. It's funny that they do this on 7-Eleven because, not Bush. Trump once upon a time mistaked September 11th for July 11th. He called it 7-Eleven in Buffalo. And remember, Trump tried to buy the Buffalo Bills, and he didn't get it. So he decided to run for president. That's the story. Buffalo Bills 117. Buffalo Bill had the record Pony Express ride with 322 miles once upon a time. Old 322. Yeah, if you didn't look it up, it's a fact. Well, I don't know that it is a fact, actually. I mean, it's a fact that they report us, but God, the things they report us that are facts, they're probably not. Anyway, it's a historical story. I think that's a better word for anything that they tell us is fact. You know what? It's the first time in a minute that it's interesting. This story is only Al Jazeera is covering this, huh? But it was the first day in a minute. I haven't been on Al Jazeera, and there wasn't nearly 100 Gaza children blown to smithereens. Let's see. Well, never mind. The top story is Israel turning Gaza into a graveyard of children and starving. And again, last week they did ban baby formula, but it's not one of those genocide things, right? Don't dare say it at a college campus, you anti-Semite. Let me read about this thing here real quick. The BBC's got the reporting the plane was going to Gatwick in London. A preliminary report into the Air India crash last month. What is this about? Stop it. I forget what Air India is. Air India. Oh, yeah. What is 47? Oh, yeah. And hold on. Hold on. There was a 47 in the Air India ritual. Didn't it? June 12th. Yeah, June 12th is 47 days before the anniversary of it commencing operations. That's right. Yeah, it was another what is 47. So Air India 47. Again, the crash 47 days before July 29th. I took a screenshot on my phone last night of an article on BBC, and I forget what it was. Oh, I know what it was. Did you guys see this? Oh, sorry, I'm getting tangential, but it made me laugh. Did you guys see this? This right here. The Hermes bag that sold for 7.4 million pounds. Did you see this? Look at this. Parallels between Hermes and Jesus. Hermes and Jesus, though figures from distinct religious and mythological traditions, share intriguing parallels, particularly in their roles as messengers, guides, and figures of transformation. Both are seen as intermediaries between different realms, Hermes between the human and divine, and Jesus between the earthly and the spiritual. Hermeticism, with its focus on knowledge and spiritual ascent, also finds resonance with Christian themes of redemption and divine revelation. I mean, this is just a quick AI search, and again, we talked about this in greater detail in the past. But remember, Jesus is Mr. 74, right? So I'm looking at this and going, a Hermes bag sells for 7.4 million pounds. And, those things are circulating in London, like English, like Gematria, like a cult. And remember everything about Jesus 74. Jesus, cross, Messiah, gospel, parables, even Jesus Christ. Remember over here in D.C., they got a image of George Washington in the clouds looking like Jesus, and they got an open tomb in that building for George Washington like they got one for Jesus. These great stories, these people that you're supposed to rever because you're taught about it at a young age. And they teach little girls, buy these expensive handbags. This one's worth 7.4 million. No, I saw that last night. I was like, you got to be kidding me. And by the way, BBC, an acronym that has different meanings depending on what circles you're in. But of course, in the news network out of the UK, BBC 74. Just run it in reverse. And don't forget, the BBC, like the New York Times, constantly run by Jesuits. Society of Jesus, a.k.a. Both fuel control switches were moved to cutoff position, a step that usually turns off the engines moments before the plane crashed. Cockpit voice recording shows confusion between the two pilots. One is heard asking his colleague why did the cutoff? Why he did the cutoff? And the other pilot said he did not do so, the report says. I wonder if these controls can be controlled remotely. Can they be controlled remotely? I want to know. An Air India spokesperson says it continues to fully cooperate with authorities. So they're using different words over here in the UK. Fuel switches, cut off. Let's see. Yeah, I see some interesting numbers there, but I got to think about it more. All right, what news propaganda network didn't we cover? MSNBC. Trump apparently terrified of the midterms is pushing Texas to change the game. woke Superman. Yeah, the thing with Bitcoin today, crypto, and this Superman movie, it again, you guys, it's just a reminder of how connected it all is. Again, the CIA literally has a Hollywood office. You know, that's why you get all these shows constantly trying to get you to think that the government's good, and watching the police and CIA and Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible. All these government agencies are out saving the world. Keep watching the Hollywood movies and then pledging to your 13 stripes and believe in the lies. You know, I just saw a Tom Cruise movie that I've never seen before. I've heard about it my whole life and I just never seen it. And I realize why they don't play this one on TV now. Have you guys seen Born on the 4th of July? I feel like this movie every young person should watch before they think about signing up for the military. It's a war movie I can get behind. Let me ruin it for you if you haven't already seen it. Tom Cruise, you know, he's a high school kid. He's coming up in the 60s. He wants to. I love how the movie starts by the way, the movie does start in 1956 of all years. He's a little kid playing out in the forest, cowboys and Indians. But he's grown up in the 60s as a teenager. He's graduating high school. And he wants to serve his country in Vietnam. He wants to be like, you know, the elders in his family who fought in the world wars. He wants to stop evil communism. And, you know, you don't get a whole lot of, it's not a movie that glorifies war. It's a movie that shows you, you know, it's a movie that a lot of people who went over and served in the Middle East and found out, again, what we've been doing in the Middle East, or I guess we took a little respite until we started up again. But again, a lot of people learned that what they're doing in the Middle East is a lot like what younger people did in the time of Vietnam. Needless war based on lies. A lot of attacks on innocent civilians, people tearing apart families because they were scared. But yeah, you know, he's over there and, you know, it shows us a scene. He's talking to a new young guy in his squad, young guy fresh out of Georgia. And Tom Cruise, who's become the leader of the little pack, he tells him, he says, "Oh, don't worry, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine." And then next thing you know, they're opening up fire on a village because they think the Viet Cong are hiding in the village. They're using the villagers as a shield, as an ambush. So they open up fire on this village, and then they go in to check out the aftermath, and they realize they just blew families to pieces. Little dead kids, moms, old men. And then in one of the scenes, everybody's dead in the room except for a little crying baby who's screaming, and Tom Cruise wants to help it, but the guys say, no, we got to get out of here. And as they get out of there, here comes the Viet Cong now responding to the attack on the village. And in this horrifying moment where Tom Cruise realizes they just killed a whole bunch of innocent people and his head's spinning, he shoots the Georgia guy in a panic by accident and kills the Georgia kid who he just told everything's going to be okay. And next thing you know, Tom Cruise gets full of bullets, but he barely survives and he's a cripple the rest of his life. And then fast forward to a scene later in the movie, He's mad at his mom, who his mom raised him on, God and country, serve your country, believe in God. And now he doesn't believe in either. And he's screaming at his mom that, he never even got to use his dick in his life. He said, I didn't even like to masturbate as much as that make you mad, but my dick doesn't even work at all. And then that's the other thing you see is that, when he went off to the war, he had this girl that liked him, one of the prettiest girls in school. And he had to put that on pause because he's going to go serve in Vietnam. And then when he comes back, he meets up with that girl. And, she's looking at him like, ugh, we had a thing, but now you're a cripple in a wheelchair with, Viagra didn't exist then, but that's not even going to do nothing. So I'm sorry, I can't have nothing to do with you. And by the way, I have to go up to my dorm hall up all these stairs, and you sure aren't going to make it up that with your wheelchair. This is on the day before they put in ramps everywhere. But yeah, I think that's exactly the kind of movie every high school kid should see that wants to go sign up for the war because they've been playing Call of Duty and seeing about all these evil Muslims on TV through all the propaganda when, again, they're not evil people. And you were lied to. They didn't have anything to do with that day when the towers came a-crumbling down like Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan told you about in '89. If you guys don't know about that, Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage fighting the Middle Eastern guys and talking about how they're going to tear down I forget what, the Twin Towers. They won't stop until they come crumbling down. You got to watch that clip. Don't forget 89 is the 11th Fibonacci number, like 9/11 was all 11. But yeah, this movie, I see why I've heard about it my whole life, and I've never seen it being shown anywhere. This isn't the kind of stuff they normally want to put on the TV. And I find it interesting that Netflix just added it. Of course, that has something to do with it being added right after the 4th of July, but I was watching this one while my mom's here in town, and my mom realized she'd never seen it before either. Shout out to Brian Rick, who sent over the $5 Cash App. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But yeah, this is the movie every high school kid should see. And more people should come and tell their stories. God, I would love to just go tour the streets of Seattle because there's a lot of people out on the streets of Seattle if they're still even, living. They gave out the cootie shots for free and that got rid of a lot of people, and the fentanyl's been taken out a lot more. And don't forget, both those things came from 68. If I'm not mistaken, 68's a big theme in this movie too. They're talking about the year 68 in this movie. But yeah, because he's talking about how the whole country fell apart in 68 with the assassinations and everything else. And man, now knowing what we know now with all the agendas that went into motion in 68, the assassinations, Cooties 19, fentanyl, 9/11, World Trade Center construction, George W. Bush, a complete retard, graduating from Skull and Bones, who's installed as the President of the United States to remind us just how dumb we really are, at least if we're paying attention. This movie is just, it's a real gem in terms of the things young people should think about. You might be fighting a war based on lies. You might be blowing apart a family. They could do a new one of these with, again, like I was saying, if you go out in Seattle, there's a lot of guys over there who lost their mind and that they'll be telling you, I killed innocent people over there. I can't get it out of my mind. I told you when I was driving Uber and Lyft, I thought I might get stabbed to death in my car one night by this guy who was just going off the walls. He got in my car with just his boxers, and he had this big old knife. He was carrying around a knife and telling me, I mean, he didn't threaten me or anything, but I was like, God, I hope this guy doesn't just spaz out. But he sat in the front seat. He was telling me all about how messed up his life is from serving in the war. And I thought, I wish I had a camera right now to record this. A lot of stories like that all across the nation. I'm just out here in the Pacific Northwest, so I say there's a lot of people out on the streets like him in Seattle. But yeah, again, this is what war does. And remember, MLK got assassinated a year to the day of his speech about beyond Vietnam, a time to break silence, talking about how this war is creating, people just full of rage, full of drugs, coming back here with all these afflictions from the war, drug addicts, spreading it to their families, their neighborhoods. He says the thing that's really destroying the U.S. is its foreign policy. And, Tom Cruise, he's screaming out, like, we didn't go over there and fight communists. We went over there and blew poor people apart. And that's what the U.S. loves to pick on, too, is third world nations. Because that's bravery, picking on the third world, like Afghanistan, like Vietnam. Even places like Iran. Iran's not third world, but it's not first world either, Supposed big boogeymen. They got one gazillionth of what we have in terms of military power. But yeah, born on the 4th of July. And, you know, it's funny how they ended up using Tom Cruise for a lot of government propaganda where he's the government superstar, Jack Ryan, and all this and whatnot. It's the complete opposite of Born on the 4th of July, but they put out that movie during Saturnalia, huh? I'll go back and look more at the release date, but yeah, that's a movie every young person should watch. You might end up in a war, devastated, and in a wheelchair, and ranting just like Tom Cruise, and realizing you did it all for one big lie. What in the world happened? I better still be live. I better not gotten cut off here. What is going on YouTube? They're playing with me. Are we still live? I'm going to be mad if this is over. Have I been talking to nobody? All right. It looks like we're still live. All right. I do got to get off. I saw Sweet Lady just pulled up. I got to get dinner going. Shout out to Kayla Decode Talker. She sent over a text message. If you guys don't know Kayla Decode Talker, check out her channel. She does good work too. Thank you, Dale. Generous Dale again with the big 5. Anything about PA 9/11 outage? I didn't know about it. So Pennsylvania has a 9/11 outage today. Let's think about it. 9/11 went live for the first time on the 47th day of the year, February 16th, 68. Today's the 192nd day, so it must be 145 days later. That doesn't connect. I don't know what Pennsylvania's date of establishment is. March 4th, 63rd day. Today's the 192nd. What's 63 minus 192? Is that 123? No. It's 126, right? No, God, I can't do math right now. I better help myself out. Why can I not do 192 minus 63? This is bad. Is it 129? It's 129, isn't it? 129 is 201 in base 8 counting. Could be something to do with that. Let me see if I got that right. March 4th, 2025 today. Yeah, it's 129 days. And we all know what happened on 9/11 when 2 towers became 0 before they became 1. And Georgetown, which equals 129, has that both into one motto. There's probably something more to it. It's 152 days after they won the Super Bowl. I know Pennsylvania's 152. I'm trying to think if there could be something to that. I don't know. I wasn't aware of that until just now. So I'll have to think more about it too. But thank you again, Dale, for your ongoing amazing generosity. It says we have 201 people watching and 119 likes. How about that? If you guys don't mind hitting the like on the way out here. It does seem that either my videos have become really boring or YouTube is suppressing us again. So anything to get us further ahead in the algorithm would be great. Because, yeah, these last 2 videos, the crypto one, I thought that was going to get some views. It didn't. I thought the video I did yesterday was just I thought it was an absolute gem, and it didn't get good views either. Yeah. So, and none of these views are good, but honestly, 5K at this stage in the game with what YouTube's done to the channel and the fact that we're shadow banned, 5K is the milestone. 201 watching. I do want it a lot better than 5K, but just 5K feels like, okay, you know, I try to imagine a room with 5,000 people. I'm like, that's not bad, 5,000. I mean, you got to take what you can get. But anyway. Thanks again, Truth Seeker. Appreciate everyone who does support the work, who hits the like and the share. And if you guys want to make me happy, if you can pledge $1 a month on Patreon, my birthday is coming up. I'd like to see the numbers get back up. Been down ever since we went across the country from Seattle to New York, pound and payment, bringing the truth seekers together. We've never gotten them back up. But we'll leave it there for now. Have a good rest of your evening. And until next time.